Greg, we got to keep going with the trends report. We are not done yet. Great conversation with our colleague Monica Sanchez on data center.
Love Monica.
We could go on about data center forever. It's again, the physical layer of the tech stack. It's not going anywhere. You know what else is not going anywhere?
It's ugly brother.
Oh no, it's
Data
the
ugly brother.
Come on. I feel like not ugly brother, maybe more cousin.
Okay.
Cousin.
We'll settle.
Cousin you don't talk to a lot, but you're definitely related.
Distant cousin.
How about that? I mean, talking data center with Monica, it's so many of the topics we covered foreshadowed this next trend that popped on the trend survey. And that's cloud, my friend. That's cloud. And frankly, you're looking up, Craig, you taught me, don't look up. The cloud is physical infrastructure. If I've learned anything. And frankly, the number of trends within the cloud category within the report is robust. So I feel like we're due for a rapid fire session. All we need, though, is the right subject matter expert. So allow me to introduce our next guest on the UPSTACK podcast. Greg Moss has decades of experience in IT infrastructure, and including cloud and data center, among other solutions. Greg, how do you feel about jumping in the hot seat today?
I would love to.
There's no better expert. There's no better, truly are an expert within cloud management, hybrid. You are the originator of this hot topic around beware the pitfalls of the cloud only deployment and the hype cycle and other things that we're going to make phrases on t-shirts that you can wear on the podcast. But you're going to help me here. Help me. Cousin, not ugly brother. It's the cousin.
Let's talk about the cousin.
So I think when it comes to cloud and digging deeper into the trends report, we do a lot of digging on this podcast. I feel like I should be wearing Carhartt overalls. Maybe next time. Hybridization, hybrid cloud. Okay, let's establish for maybe those newer listeners to digital infrastructure, what is hybrid cloud?
I guess the easiest way to look at hybrid cloud is there's three buckets. There's the data center bucket, which will hold a company's physical infrastructure. There's the bare metal or custom managed hosting bucket, which is in between of public cloud and data center. And then there's the public cloud, which gives you the ability to kind of burst and create.
And that's your AWS and your Azures. Got it. I know that much.
Bringing the three of those together, whether it's data center and public cloud or data center and bare metal, or all three, is what you would consider a hybridized type of environment.
And that's what we touched on it with Monica. There's working with the right partner, you can architect the optimal solution. So it's not necessarily what you can do one or the other, but there's actually real benefits for your business based on the needs of your business to do a mix. So sounds like there could be some efficiencies there, having that mix of, be it on-prem and cloud hosting. But doesn't this make things a little more complex? Like how are you, when you're working with clients, how are you advising them to best streamline what could be an incredibly complex process?
So let's first realize the state of industry. Most companies are at about a 70% headcount in their technology groups, right? So they have to be extremely efficient in how they prioritize things. As far as hybrid is concerned, it's easy to make a decision to go in one direction. So we want to go to the cloud or we want to go to the data center, right? That, to me, that's cut and dry. You build the plan and you go with it. When you start to talk hybrid, it does get a lot more complex, Alex. And what that requires is more time and more understanding. And if a company has the time and the experience, it's really something that every company should look at, because you're going to optimize both the technical and economic sides of your platform in the best possible way.
I keep thinking about the economics of all this, Greg. Great. There's a number of different options: on-prem, public cloud, hybridization. There's costs associated with all of this, I would imagine. I mean, how are you balancing that doing that delicate dance, the client need versus the cost of the potential solutions available to them?
Just like any industry, you have your D grade players and your A grade players on the vendor side, and it really just gives you kind of a range with of services in mostly a commodity driven world. Unless you have something really specialized about your environment, whether it's like extreme latency requirements or some sort of antiquated hardware, it's you could find the right vendors at the right price in this day and age.
All right, Greg, you got me. There's a lot of options out there. Sounds like I can find something that works within my budget. With you by my side, I can definitely make it happen. I want to migrate. Now, whether that's to the cloud or from the cloud or ending up somewhere in between, I would think that the quicker I can make this change, the better the return on investment. I mean, what are you currently seeing with clients who are looking to make that move in one direction or the other? Is there, frankly, complacency to doing that? Because we've been on prem for so long. Why make a change? We know it costs us X. Or are you seeing a lot of clients pushing for a change because they think there may be more efficiencies to be had from a cost or performance standpoint?
It's good, great question. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. You're seeing customers that want to move to the cloud because it's something internally that they want to do, and they want to upgrade their systems and get a chance to rewrite code and be better. There's customers that want to be in the cloud because their customers need to be in the cloud. So a customer's customer is driving that demand. It goes back to capacity, right? If you're operating at a reduced headcount and you need to prioritize, I'm always going to suggest bringing in a third party, someone who's been through that cloud migration process, and then could step in and be the extra set of eyes and kind of mitigate risk and improve efficiencies, right? Because it's a process, whether it's a 1 month process or a 1 year process. You're going through a transformation that you haven't done in the past, and it's changing one platform to a new platform, and there's risk and cost, and again, claiming that you're the expert with such a narrow focus, right? Being that you're just in your lane is a mistake. Bringing in a third party that sees what others are doing well and not so well across many different verticals and platforms is important, right? Even if it's for a partial consulting contract, you don't need to bring someone in to do the whole thing, but to have that extra set of eyes, to me, is critical.
Alleviate some of the stress.
The unknown.
Avoid the unknown, the pitfalls. The pitfalls.
Like,
See,
you beat me to it.
I was going to say, like, we are part of the hype cycle, but we want someone to help us avoid the pitfalls. Okay, I'm in the cloud now. Thank you. You have helped me understand the value of the cloud based on my business, what we're looking to do. The cloud makes a lot of sense. Maybe it's a hybrid environment. My workloads are in the cloud. Now I'm thinking about optimization. Another trend in the report. What are you advising clients on when it comes to workload optimization as far as the best tools? If I'm trying to get the most out of this investment, what am I using to do that?
So just like building a house, if you don't have a really good foundation, the house could collapse, or there could be a leak, right? Or a rodent, somehow breaches the house. So same thing with the cloud. I think when you have the opportunity to start something new, you want to create a really strong foundation, and that could be through cloud governance. That could be with third parties that help ensure that the workloads are being utilized to the most efficient they could be, right? You have a lot of situations, especially in the larger organizations, where things kind of go astray, and you have, hundreds, if not thousands, of cloud instances spun up from hundreds of different groups, all with little to no management, right? So, a guy finishes his workday, goes home, that instance is still running, even though it's not being used, and it can be forgotten about and run for weeks or months or years, and then suddenly you get these large bills, and you're trying to figure out why you're overspending, and ultimately years later you come back, hire a third party, and they say, "Wow, here's what you're doing wrong," right? And so the plan is to do all this upfront work to make sure that foundation is already intact, so you don't have those challenges down the road.
This is where you need to have your cloud center of excellence. Have we not learned that?
Shuni, where are
Shuni
you?
Kaney, seriously, we've learned. You need to have eyes and ears on this stuff.
That is right.
So you don't go too far down a particular path. That's incredibly valuable. And I've instituted, as I established on a previous episode, I have one when it comes to various things in my house. My children don't really abide by the rulings of the Cloud Center of Excellence, but we're still working on it. Greg, we got to go to the edge. We're always towing the edge here. Touched on it a bit with Monica, because obviously this is one of the many connections. to data center, but what are you seeing maybe most recently when it comes to edge computing in the cloud? Certainly a continued migration for certain businesses, certain applications, but anything else to add?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about the edge is it's coming later in process, and I think that's predominantly because everyone's tackled you know, the the football cities. Once you've hit a football city and you've tapped it out from a revenue standpoint as a company, you need to look for more revenue, at
Yep.
least top line revenue. And then they move to the secondary markets and then the tertiary market. So all these moves into these markets are requiring service providers to be at the edge to deliver a latency, a low latency product. So what's happening is you have a situation where AWS has and GCP and Azure have these massive hubs around the country, but to get back to those hubs, certain applications won't work, right? Because of the latency. So what's happening is these data centers are moving into these secondary and tertiary markets and standing up private cloud or some sort of bare metal cloud to offset some of those needs. So you have a situation where you're in Paris, Texas, and you need to get back to a service provider. It's coming back to a data center as opposed to a public cloud.
And I'd imagine edge availability of edge or kind of that infrastructure it's only going to grow over time.
That's the growth.
Yeah, I was going to say that's where the growth is. It makes sense.
It's a big part of the growth, right? There's still a lot of growth inherently within the football cities, right? Because it's just natural, but a lot of the top line growth and new logo growth for some of these service providers are in these secondary and tertiary markets, which we're considering edge markets.
I think we're contractually obligated to talk about AI in every single episode of the UPSTACK podcast. I mean, where within cloud are you seeing AI drive the most growth? I mean, the hyperscalers are benefiting. Obviously, you've got some connections there between Microsoft and OpenAI. But I'm curious if other players are coming along to support that growth from an infrastructure standpoint.
So I think every company in the world, or most companies, are looking at AI and what it means to their business, whether it's a direct development of AI or working with a third party. And back to the hype cycle, right? That's at some point going to stall out for people, and that all that infrastructure is going to come back on the market, and all those needs will kind of slow. And then what's going to be left is the core of what the real need is. And I think that what's happening is AI is driving large power demand and denser power demand. And then you have this interesting convergence of the hyperscalers and then smaller firms like DigitalOcean and Lambda, and everybody's kind of fighting for the customer, and which is great, right? Because that drives costs down and it creates markets. So it's an interesting thing, right? Right now, what is it? Is it exacerbated? Yes. I can't really formulate a thought around what it is today, because everybody's doing it, and everybody wants to know what it's about.
Doing it, or they think they need to do it. Well, everyone else is doing it. I got to
Yeah,
figure out
they
what's
think
our
they need
AI.
to do it. They haven't put a business model around it, which is a big issue, right? But, they're buying power at 11 cents and not knowing if they're going to be able to generate a profit, let alone margin on that, right? So there's a lot of unknowns in this AI space right now.
A lot of unknowns in AI. Are there any unknowns in the cloud space that we want the listeners to be aware of? Is there anything we haven't highlighted talking about trends within cloud and frankly, managed hosting services in general?
Yeah, I think I think cost in the public cloud has always been a concern. We've talked about this on previous episodes, and at some point that has to give, because there's a lot of companies that aren't going to move out of the cloud just because of cost, right? Because then there's a cost to move out. So the question becomes, do the data centers in the cloud meet in the middle, right? We talked about it briefly on our last episode. Does one of the big three acquire a large data center or global data center company to create a hybrid coming from the cloud down, as opposed to a data center company creating a bare metal environment and then direct on ramps to the public cloud from the bottom up? So the question is there a convergence? That's to me the big question mark that will take cloud to that next level.
So potentially a dense question. So you're I mean, that's an amazing prediction, by the way. But the hyperscalers, the big public cloud companies might do that because they see such a rapid move or potentially an increase in companies moving from the public cloud, and they want to capture some of that revenue, some of that market opportunity. Is that why you're hazarding a guess that might happen? This idea of convergence.
So they've been attriting for a decade, or if not more. The question becomes: do you see the attrition, or how does the attrition affect your top line revenue because you're publicly traded?
Right.
They still have such a strong demand, not only within their current base, the growth within their current base, but they have a lot of delayed adopters still coming online. So that attrition isn't as important. But once that slows over the next 3 to 5 years, they're going to start to pay a lot of attention to that. And the only way to control that is to get into the game, right? And that game is data center or bare metal. And I don't see any other option for them. The other thing would be, controlling the cost of transfer, because that's one of the big increases in price. They can't do that. There's not one. If there was a single fiber provider across the United States that can solve for that, an acquisition of a fiber carrier would do it, but it's not. There's so much peering and handshakes within the fiber world that there's no acquisition there that would solve for that. There would be an acquisition to solve for hybridization, which would bring costs down and get them into a company into an environment that made sense, holistically.
Making these truly a one-stop shop where all the options are at your fingertips, but with a single supplier. We've also talked about that, where this idea of being able to operate supplier agnostic has huge benefits for your business, both from a solution ecosystem standpoint, but also the costs associated with it.
Okay.
All right, rapid fire. How did it feel to be in the guest hot seat? Are you feeling more empathetic?
I'm still trying to figure it out, Alex. I'm sitting here. I didn't even realize we hit start. Are we done?
I think we don't have to be done, but I'm just waiting for the moment when you turn the tables on me and like, what the hell are you going to ask me about?
Well, I asked you about the helmet on your desk earlier. Should we save it to one question per episode? Or
we can do that. Yeah. Why don't we do that? There's only so much depth here. As opposed to IT infrastructure, the Alex Cole stack doesn't run that deep. But this was fun.
Have you learned? Do you feel like being on these podcasts, you've actually, because I'm assuming you're at events or parties and you've been able to have conversation based on some of these?
Very much so. I mean, I love talking shop with you and our other colleagues. And what I love most about our industry is the technologies that we have deep experience in touch every aspect of life today. I mean, it underpins the internet. The internet is interwoven in everything, whether it's my kids on their iPad not listening to me as I operate from my cloud center of excellence, or something as rudimentary as typing in directions to Google Maps in my car. It's been amazing, and frankly, why are we doing this? We're evangelists of sorts, certainly for UPSTACK, but for technology at large. And you can feel it from at least where we sit at UPSTACK. The spotlight is growing brighter on this industry, and people are understanding more and more the critical component that it plays, both data center and cloud and CX, and certainly security very much so, top of mind in the public sphere as well. But the technologies that comprise the tech stack as well. So we will have more episodes, because there is one constant in addition to data center and cloud too. It's this industry is ever evolving. So we will never lack for content or topics. So with that, Greg Moss, great to see you, and thank you for being a guest on this special episode.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
Of the UPSTACK podcast. Who are we sponsored by today?
We are sponsored by Mountain Valley.
That's fantastic. The iconic green bud. I like to thank Mountain Valley Natural Spring Water for Greg Moss's lustrous skin.
Hydration.
Yes, I could use some of that. To our listeners, thank you for putting up with us, and hopefully you learned a thing or two today when it comes to cloud. And do check out the Technology Trends Report. It's the very tip of the iceberg when it comes to areas of expertise that UPSTACK can help you and others with, and we hope you enjoy the read.
If you're looking for an agile Gartner without the cost, we're here.
There you go. An agile Gartner. Can we trademark that? We'll get on that. We'll get our team right on that. Listeners, we appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing you next time on the UPSTACK podcast.